Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, I would like to provide you technical information regarding the interpretation. We have interpretation in both Turkish and English. And if you would like to listen in English, you should choose the English option. But if it is in Turkish, you should choose the Korean option below. İki dilde tercümemiz var, Türkçe ve İngilizce. İngilizce dinlemek isteyenler, eğer Türkçe dinlemek istiyorsanız Korece'yi seçmeniz gerekiyor aşağıdaki. So, dear esteemed speakers and distinguished guests, it's a really great pleasure to welcome you all to the TEBD AGRI-FOOD online forum. As TEBD team, we would like to thank you for being with us today. And Turkey EU Business Dialogue project aims at strengthening mutual knowledge and dialogue and long-term cooperation between Turkish chambers and their counterparts in the EU. And we promote the integration of European and Turkish business communities and also making the European and Turkish economies and business collaboration more sustainable. And our project has been implementing by Euro Chambers in close cooperation with TEBD. Our project is co-financed by European Union and Republic of Turkey. And during the implementation of the TEBD project, chambers and their members from Turkey and the EU are engaging in partnerships, business dialogues, capacity building with more than 100 activities. And today we are organizing TEBD AGRI-FOOD online forum within the framework of our capacity building activities to bring industry leaders, policymakers, farmers, agri-food supply chain actors, European and Turkish business communities together. Today and tomorrow we will have interactive sessions and debates on the key topics in the field of agri-food in 4 different sessions. We had a virtual session in this morning on EU Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy, as well as food quality requirements. And now in this session, we will focus on EU and Turkey rural development policy and circular economy and strategies for sustainability, actions to support SMEs transition to a circular economy with the perspective of Turkish and European chambers. And tomorrow we will discuss the new trends in the agri-food sector, from agroecology to food ethics, from women agribusiness to digitalization and agricultural technologies. And then in our last session, we are planning to discuss needs and opportunities of the agri-food ecosystem from chambers and SMEs perspective. We will have clusters and government support as well. So we would like to have an interactive session and finalize our forum, such an interactive session. And now, without any further delay, we will turn the time over to our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Christoph Sulima, IPART Program Manager for Turkey from the European Commission, Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development. Mr. Sulima, the floor is yours, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman, for introducing me, and also to organizers for inviting me to this event, which will allow me to share with you and with all the participants few informations about the EU Common Agricultural Policy, with a particular focus on rural development policy and its potential to deliver on the Green Deal targets and objectives. So let me just share my presentation with you. hopefully you can all see it well. So as I said, I will say a few words about the Common Agricultural Policy, rural development aspect of the Common Agricultural Policy, and how the policy based on the Commission proposal for the new CAP also will deliver on the Green Deal targets and objectives. Before that, I thought that it would be very useful to show that as we know that the European Green Deal is the flagship of the current European Commission. It's a flagship for the few years for all of us in the EU and beyond when it comes to achieving its result. And I thought about few quotes which the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, did make and which concerned not only Green Deal, but also the role of agriculture and farmers in contributing to the Green Deal objectives. She said that European farmers are key to managing the transition which is foreseen and planned by the Green Deal and the underpinning strategies of the Green Deal. And she also made it very clear that respecting and contributing to the Green Deal, to these new policy initiatives, also lays in the interest of farmers and of rural areas.
I'm sorry for interrupting your presentation, but we have some like black blocks on your presentation. So would it be possible to just stop sharing? So we will try to share.
Okay. Yes. Of course, I'm stopping to share it right now.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for interrupting your presentation.
No, not at all. Can I continue? Okay, I will wait for loading the presentation. I will perhaps continue. The President of the Commission made it very clear that it's also in the interest of the farmers to contribute to a Green Deal targets and objectives, because their livelihoods of farmers depend on the environment, depends on climate and the state of the natural resources. And she also made it very clear the very important role to be played by the Common Agricultural Policy when it comes to achieving the objective of the Green Deal and helping farmers in ensuring the transition towards this new growth strategy of the EU. Next slide, please. And that's where we come to the Green Deal EU targets of the particular relevance for agriculture. I will not talk much about it because I know that the first speaker of our event this morning, Mr. Wieszek from the cabinet of the Vice President Timmermans, already referred to the Green Deal targets relevant for farming and agriculture. So this is just a reminder to see where, let's say, the main focus, even if not exclusive focus of the Common Agricultural Policy will be when it comes to contributing to the Green Deal. So, of course, the reduction of the chemical inputs in form of pesticides and fertilizers, reduction also of the antimicrobial substances or products, as well as increasing the area under organic farming, as well as the area beneficial for the environment in form of the high diversity of landscape. Next slide, please. And when we look at those Green Deal objectives, and then we remember this quote which the President of the Commission said, that the Common Agricultural Policy will be a core element in contributing to the Green Deal, obviously it will bring us to the objectives of the new Common Agricultural Policy. So we have here the general main objectives of the new Common Agricultural Policy. When we look at them, we could say that they are quite similar to the objectives of the current CAP, of the current Rural Development Policy, because the general objectives in a way they reflect the three-dimensional aspect or character of the CAP, which is focused on economic, social, and environmental aspect. But what is even more relevant when it comes to the future common agricultural policy are the so-called specific objectives of the CAP. And we have 9 of those specific objectives. And when we look at them more at details, we see that they are in a way grouped vis-a-vis those 3 general objectives of the CAP. The first 3 of them, they are very much focused on this economic dimension, which I just mentioned, of the CAP. So this is the ensuring the farm income of farmers, of agricultural dwellers of the rural areas, increasing the competitiveness overall of the agricultural sector. But also what is very, I think, important in the context of our event, and when we talk about the Green Deal and the farm to fork strategy, is rebalancing and improving the position of farmers, of primary producers in the food chain. And then we have the 3 subsequent specific objectives, which are very much related to the environmental dimension of the CAP. And here we have the objectives related to climate change mitigation and adaptation, the sustainable management of natural resources, as well as preservation and enhancement of the environment, biodiversity, ecosystems, and European landscape. And the remaining, the last 3 specific objectives of the new CAP, they are very much about the social aspect or dimension of the CAP. They are about the generational renewal, so providing help for the young farmers, for those who want to enter the agricultural sector. It's about making rural areas attractive, and also responding to the societal demands when it comes to the food quality, when it comes to the animal welfare, when it comes also to health and, for instance, food waste. And all these objectives, the whole common agricultural policy, the new common agricultural policy, will be built on the cross-cutting issues, which is a focus on knowledge and innovation, another aspect which I know has been also very well discussed and covered in the morning session of today's event. Next session, please. And how the new CAP policy will try to respond and implement those specific and general objectives. I think what is new compared to the current common agricultural policy is that the new CAP will be much more built on the strategic approach. It will be very much focused on the result. It will be result-oriented policy, which will not that much focus on rules and compliance with rules, but rather it will focus and concentrate on the performance of the policy and performance of the way the policy is being implemented by the member states. At the same time, it will provide larger and more flexibility for the member states in implementing the common agricultural policy. And this is because we all learned that one-size-fits-all approach does not always work when it comes to the common agricultural policy. And what is also relevant and important in the context of what we are discussing today, it's also that the new CAP will establish the obligation to aim higher when it comes to the delivery for the environmental and climate. And this will be covered by the next slide, please. Here on the next slide, please. Yes, and here we see, let's say, the principles, the tools which the new CAP will provide in order to guarantee the higher environmental ambitions. So it will, for instance, require from member states that their CAP plans will not be less ambitious when it comes to Green Deal targets than the current policy. It will require that the 40% of the overall budget of the CAP will be related to climate, and 30% of the rural development budget will be linked to those 3 specific objectives related to the environmental and climate dimension of the CAP. The new policy, which will also put more stress of involving various large range of stakeholders, also those which are very much related and involved in implementing Green Deals, in preparing and implementing the plans. And what is also very important is that the new CAP will make a much stronger link than the current CAP to the objectives and targets set by the respective environmental and climate-related legislation of the EU. This will bring us to another very important aspect of the new CAP, which is the so-called new green architecture, which I will present on the next slide. So please move to the, yes, thank you. And here, this slide will show you, in a way, the difference compared to the current common agricultural policy when it comes to the ambition in delivering this higher added value for objectives, which are also objectives set by the Green Deal, objectives set by biodiversity strategy and farm to fork strategy. And why will it happen? Because the whole basic standards, which we call the baseline for the EU, will be increased. And this baseline is very much made of what we call cross-compliance, or in the future will be called conditionality. And it's made of different rules based on the legislation concerning the management of natural resources, issues related to climate, but also aspects related, for instance, to the use of pesticides or animal welfare and public health. And what is very typical for rural development policy of the common agricultural policy of the EU is that it mainly or almost exclusively supported the activities which go beyond these basic standards. And that's why this new green architecture with the higher basic standard is so relevant when it comes to addressing the objectives of the strategies which underpin the Green Deal policy initiative of the EU. And here we have one of these new tools, which is called Eco Scheme, which I know that Mr. Wiszek also mentioned earlier today. So I will not develop much on this, but I will focus on another aspect, which are the rural development instruments of the EU Common Agricultural Policy, also playing a role in the green architecture and responding to the Green Deal targets. So the next slide, please. The next slide will show you that the new CAP will be very much based on the 8 interventions. We will call current measures interventions. You see the difference. In the current CAP, in the rural development policy, we have about 20 measures, which then they are also translated in many dozens of sub-measures. Now, the new CAP proposes 8 main interventions, which, however, will not really decrease the possibilities which were offered by other existing measures. It's more about streamlining or mainstreaming the issues and including them in 8 interventions which member states will have to program in their respective CAP plan. And on the next slide, I will show you very briefly the main, let's say, interventions which will play a role in delivering on the farm to fork and Green Deal interventions. So I will ask you now, I will ask for the next slide, please. And here we will start from the interventions which is called environmental, climate and other management commitments. And what it means, this enigmatic title? Well, it in a way embraces the existing measures such as agri-environment climate measure, organic farming, support for the genetic resources or animal welfare. And which practices can be supported here? For instance, the conversion from conventional to organic farming production methods. So again, very direct relations to the farm to fork and Green Deal objectives. Then promotion of the agroecology concept of agroforestry, carbon farming, which also was mentioned earlier today, integrated pest management, very much related to reduction of pesticides, landscape management, grassland management, also related to the biodiversity strategy objectives related, for instance, to the higher coverage with the rich landscape diversity. And on the next slide, we will see another very important interventions, which is investment. Investment which covers a very broad issues and aspects which can be covered and which can be relevant for Green Deal. What is new when it comes to the investment in the new CAP is that it will also include in the legislation the list of the so-called negative investments, so investment which are in principle considered as not sustainable and therefore cannot be supported under rural development policy. But what can be supported? All the investment, for instance, related to adaptation to climate change, forestry related, such as establishing the forest or agroforestry system, increasing the resilience of agriculture, all the activities related to energy and water efficiency. So sustainable irrigation by all means can be supported because it leads to less use of water. So here we have water efficiency, clean energy, circular economy, which is also one of the aspects which can be financed under investment, or reconstruction of water supply and sewage system, farms biosecurity. So you can see a very large scope of actions which can be supported under investment. And the next slide will refer us to the two very important interventions which are related to the aspect of research and innovation. So issue which was already also covered by some other speakers this morning. And I also mentioned that the whole concept of more using more the result of the research, innovative practices, innovative equipment. This will become in a way a cross-cutting or objective or theme for the new CAP. And we have the specific instrument, which in a way will all create what we call AGRI's, Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System. And here, for instance, also it will include providing farmers with the information and knowledge or advice on the aspects and issues relevant for the Green Deal. It can also concern, for instance, issues like risk management or fighting antimicrobial resistance or short supply chain or environmental standard. And finally, the last intervention I want to mention is the so-called cooperation. So this is a very broad measures which includes issues such as leader, such as quality scheme. This is shown on the next slide. So if we can move please to the next slide, or producers organization. And this measure is very relevant when it comes, for instance, to farm to fork objectives, because it can also very much promote the short supply chain. It can help farmers, individual farmers, to get together and in a way also strengthen their position in the whole food value chain. And cooperation measure or intervention, it's supposed to help those individual farmers to get together and strengthen their position. So these are, let's say, the intervention. On the next slide, to which we will move now, please, it shows that we have undertaken in the EU the exercise of facilitating, let's say, member states to respond to the objectives of the Green Deal. And we set this, what we call CAP recommendations. The CAP recommendations, where we analyze the situation in each member state vis-a-vis each of the specific objectives of the CAP, which I mentioned on one of the first slides of my presentation. And we propose the specific recommendations related to each of these specific objectives. And now member states will have to, when designing their CAP plan, they will have to look at those recommendations coming from the Commission, and they will also have to show in their plans how they take into account the targets and objectives set by the Green Deal, by farm to fork, biodiversity strategy. And one of the way of doing this is to reflect those targets, the EU targets, in their national targets and result indicators. And finally, the last slide, on which just few conclusive remarks, where I want to conclude that agricultural and rural areas and the whole CAP, the new CAP, has essential role to play in implementing the Green Deal and underpinning strategies of the Green Deal. Based on the exercise undertaken by the European Commission and mainly DG Agriculture, it was demonstrated that the CAP proposal, as proposed by the Commission, is compatible with the Green Deal targets. So it has a huge potential. It's a proper tool full of various instruments which can help member states to deliver on Green Deal. And the CAP plans with its tools will also reward farmers and different actors of food chain for improving their environmental and climate performance. And the last thing is that the CAP, as the Commission President also said, and what I referred to on the first slide, is an important tool in allowing the transition of European agriculture into the sustainable food production system, which ensure its contribution to the environment and climate, but at the same time, it allows to ensure the strong position of the farmers in the food chain, and ensures at the same time the farmers' income and competitiveness. So that's very few words about this big thing which the Common Agricultural Policy is. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm of course by all means available to answer your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sulima. Actually, as a complementary part, we would hear the Turkish Rural Development Policy from Dr. Osman Yıldız, but unfortunately, he has another meeting, and he will join us a bit late. So I would like to, in this session, as you all know, we would focus on EU and Turkey rural development policy and circular economy. And now I would like to continue with the next topic. Before that, just a little reminder, if you have any questions during speech, please type them into the chat question and ask parts in your Zoom control panel. In the end of the speech, we will have a question and ask parts. Then I will direct your questions to our speakers. As you all know, in recent years, increased waste food at all stages of the agri-food systems, including production, storage, processing, wholesale consumption, puts enormous pressure on producing as much food as possible. And the main reasons of the inefficiency in meeting the demand for food in agri-food systems are a loss of productivity, energy, and natural resources that finally prove to be expensive. And circular economy provides a kind of solution to minimize this waste in agri-food systems and meet the demand for food. In other words, circular economy in agri-food systems leads a reduction in waste, and there is a possibility to use the waste in questions as byproducts or co-products in agri-food systems. So circular economy in agri-food system implies implementing policies and decisions at different stages of agri-food systems. In this part of our panel, we will hear more about actions to support SMEs transition to this circular economy from Turkish and European chambers. And our next speaker will be Mr. Özer Matlı. He is the board member of TEBD, president of Bursa Commodity Exchange, and he is also chairman of the board of directors of Matlı Food Group. Mr. Matlı, the floor is yours, please.
Evet, teşekkür ederim Oya Hanım. Sayın panelistler, değerli katılımcılar, öncelikle tarımsal gıda alanında birbirinden değerli konuları tartışmak için bir araya geldiğimiz Türkiye-AB İş Diyaloğu projesi kapsamında TOP ve Eurochambers işbirliğinde düzenlenen Tarımsal Gıda Forumu etkinliğinde sizlerle birlikte olmaktan son derece memnun duyduğumu ifade etmek isterim. Forumun da düzenlenmesine emeği geçen herkese teşekkürlerimi sunuyorum. Döngüsel ekonomiyi hızlandırmak, daha güçlü bağlılık, hükümetler, işletmeler, bilim çevreleri ve tüketicileri kapsayan katılımcı bir yaklaşım ve değer zincirinde daha fazla bir işbirliği gerektirir. Ve elbette ki çözümlerin tespit edilerek uygulanması noktasında da endüstriye önemli roller düşmektedir. Artık günümüzde sınırlı kaynaklar giderek azalmakta, ham maddeye erişim zorlaşmaktadır. Rekabet artmakta ve iklim değişikliğinin kaçınılmaz sonuçları da dikkat çekici bir şekilde görülmektedir. Giderek artan çevre kirliliği ve iklim krizi nedeniyle ülkelerde çeşitli yollar aramaya başlamıştır. Üretim sisteminde oluşan her atığın tekrar değerlendirildiği, bu sayede ham madde maliyetlerinin minimize edildiği, kaynak verimliliğinin ise en üst düzeyde tutulduğu sürdürülebilir bir üretim modeli olan döngüsel ekonomi bu çözümlerin en başına gelmektedir. Genel anlamda bütün panelistler ana konulara değiniyor. Ben konuya biraz farklı yerden girmek istiyorum. Şimdi bu son süreçte yeşil mutabakat diyoruz, Avrupa Birliği uyum diyoruz, Türk tarımının Avrupa Birliği normlarına göre gelişimi diyoruz. Ama son bir yıldır dünyada hepimizin ortak derdi olan koronavirüsü gibi bir derdimiz var. Yani bir hastalık, bir salgın konusu haline geldiği bir koronavirüsü aslında bizim üretimle ilgili yeşil döngü noktasındaki bütün planlarımızı da bir anda bozmaya başlamıştır. Çünkü bu süreçte artan ülkelerin fonlara verdikleri ciddi likidite ve aynı zamanda ülkelerin gıda güvenliği konusunda kendileriyle ilgili yaptığım süreçleri çok başka bir yere getirmektedir. Yani şuna örnek vermek gerekirse, Türkiye'nin kendi üretim deseni içerisinde ay çekirdeğinde belli bir oranda eksiklik vardı. Ve bunu Ukrayna, Rusya gibi ülkelerden karşılamaktaydı. Ve bu döngü kendi içerisinde de, yani Ukrayna tarımın içerisindeki kabuklarıyla ilgili veya tarımsal üretimde sapı diye tabir ettiğimiz atıklarıyla ilgili bir planlama, Türkiye tarafında da bununla ilgili yağlık veya enerjiye dönüşen bir yağ tüketimi vardı. Bunların hepsi tekrar değişmeye başladı. Yani ben bunu antiparantez olarak belirtmek istiyorum. Çünkü süreçte yeşil mutabakatı konuşurken bu korona süreçlerinden sonra yeni bir dünya, yeni bir düzen, yeni bir gıda politikasına da dikkat çekmek için bu bilgiyi vermek istiyorum. Ben iş dünyası olarak aynı zamanda biraz önce Oya Hanım da bahsetti. Bursa Ticaret Borsası olarak bizim Avrupa Birliği odalarıyla ortak yaptığımız çalışmalar da var. İşte Romanya, İspanya ile Bursa Ticaret Borsası'nın ortaklaşa yürüttüğü gıda israfı konusunda da 2 yıllık süren başarılı bir çalışmamız oluştu. Şirketler olarak da özellikle geri dönüşüme baktığınızda biz çünkü Türkiye'nin en büyükbaş yem üreticisi bir firmanın yönetim kurulu başkanıyım. Kendimden örnek vermek gerekirse bizim soya, tahıllar içerisinde mısır, buğday gibi ürünleri koyduğumuzda bunlar toplam 100 birim ürünümüzün içerisinde %30'unu teşkil ediyor. Geri kalan %70'i ise aslında birisinin atığı, birisinin sermayesi anlamında veya ana ham maddesi anlamında düşünürsek buğdayın kepeği, bir un çıkarmak için işleme tesisindeki bir atığı veya yağlı tohumlarda baktığımızda yağı alınan bir ay çekirdeğinin kabuğu bizim ana ham maddemiz. Veya şekerden örnek vermek gerekirse pancardan elde edilen şeker elde edilemeyen kısmı bizim ana ham maddemiz. Tavukçuluk konusuna girmek gerekirse bazen bazen insanlara gelebiliyor ama örnek söylüyorum. Büyükbaş hayvanın atıkları, kanunu bir atık değil, aslında ciddi bir protein kaynağı. Veya Türkiye'de tüketilmeyen tavuğun ayağı, bu Uzak Doğu'da ciddi bir soslu ürün noktasında bir ana ham madde. Yani şunu söylemeye çalışıyorum. Burada gıda noktasında gıdanın belli alanları kuru gıda diye tabir ettiğimiz yem sektörüne dönen, yani bozulma yapısı olmayan, rutubeti düşük olan ürünlerin hepsi aslında Türkiye'de yem sektörünün bir ana ham maddesi. Yani bunları genişletebiliriz. İşte tükettiğimiz bisküvilerden kurutulmuş ekmeğe kadar, çikolatanın bozulmamış, küflenmemiş kısmına düşündüğümüzde bunların hepsi yem sektörünün ana ham maddesi. Yani Türkiye'de belli bir rakam vermek gerekirse 13 milyon ton civarında büyükbaş yem üretimi yapılıyor. %30 tahıllı çıktığımızda 13 milyon işini diyor 4 milyon dediğimde 8 milyon ton gibi tarımsal ürünlerin artıkları yem sektörünün ana ham maddesi noktasında işlenmeye başladı. Tabii gıdayla ilgili biraz önce korona sürecinden de bahsettim. Çünkü dünyada emtia fiyatları ve gıda fiyatları da artıyor. Yani yeşili konuşursak, yeşil mutabakatı konuşurken aslında gelirlerin azaldığı toplumlarda da başka bir tehlikeye de ben dikkat çekmek istiyorum. Yani örnek vermek gerekirse enerjide de yeşil enerjiye dönmeye başlarken biyogaz gibi, yakma tesisleri gibi, atık çamurdan veya nedir buğday başağındaki, buğday tarlasındaki buğdayın sapını biz aynı zamanda hayvancılıkta büyükbaşın altlığı olarak da kullanabiliriz. Aynı zamanda enerji üretmek için bir yakıt anlamında bir atık olarak da kullanabiliriz. Şimdi gıdayı konuştuğumuzda gıda dünyanın her yerinde, Avrupa Birliği'nde de özellikle korunan sektörlerden, devletlerin politikası olmadığında enerji sektörlerinin yanında, teknolojinin yanında gıda korunması gereken bir sektör. Çünkü toplumsal beslenmesi ve aynı zamanda kırsaldan kente göçün de temel sebeplerine baktığımızda tarım her ülkenin öncelikli politikalarından birisi olması gerekiyor. Ve bununla da ilgili de ülkeler bu yeni dönemde de gıda arzı noktasında da sermayenin yetmediği, üretimini yapamadığınız bir yerde paranızla yeri gelir salgın hastalıklar döneminde satın alamayacağınız bir dönemi de ifade etmeye başladı son zamanlarda. Şimdi biyogazla kullanılan atıkların her biri aslında yem sektörünün veya hayvancılık sektörünün bir ana ürünü olarak baktığımızda bir geri dönüşümde şu anda kendi içerisinde karlı geri dönüşümle enerjiye baktığımızda enerjideki geri dönüşüm süreleri çok daha kısa olduğundan dolayı kendi içerisindeki bazı ürünlerde rekabet başladı. Çeltiğin kabuğu veya sapı geçmişte bir tavuk altlı olarak kullanılıyordu. Bugün aynı ürün şu anda enerji ihtiyacının ana ham maddesi haline gelmeye başladı. Bu ne demektir? Tavuk üretiminde hayvanın refahı noktasında, hijyen noktasında altına atılan bir ürünün bulunamaması sebebiyle bunun yerine alternatif olarak talaş gibi, yani talaş gibi derken orman atıklarıyla beraber bambaşka bir pazara talep yaratılmıştır. Yani orman atığı dediğiniz aynı zamanda bunların presle sıkıştırılmasıyla bir duvarda veya bir koltukta bir ana ürün olarak kullanılabilen bir ürünün başka bir pazarın açılmasına da sebep oldu. Yani ne demektir bu? Tavuk altlığında kullanılan atık, çeltik kabuğu, pirinç tanesinin atığı dediğimiz yapı bu sefer mobilya sektörünün atıklarının pazarı haline gelen bir yapıya. Ve devletler atık konusunda, enerji desteklemeleri konusunda yaptıkları oranlamayı doğru yapamazlarsa, yani tarımsal ürünlerin maliyetini aslında yem sektörü gibi kuru, rutubeti olmayan ürünlerde gerçekleştirdiğimiz atığı şu an daha pahalıya üretir. Aslında yem maliyetlerimizi, et maliyetlerimizi artırır hale de gelebiliriz. Bunun dışında gübre gibi büyükbaşın gübresini örnek vermek gerekirse, büyükbaşın gübresinin iyi bir fermante ettiğinizde kimyasal gübre kaynağına karşı daha ucuz ve daha doğal ve doğada kaybolabilecek bir iyi bir gübre kaynağı olarak kullanabileceğiniz bir ürün yine biyogaz tesisleriyle beraber aynı zamanda veya bunu kurutup yakma tesisleriyle beraber işlem haline getirdiğinizde ciddi bir oranda enerji üretim yapısına dönüşecek bir model haline gelebiliyor. Yani ben geri dönüşümün yeni teknolojiyle, yeni dünya düzeniyle evdeki atıklar noktasından örnek vermek istiyorum. Yani Avrupa'da çevresel atıklarda evdeki atıkların gruplandırması noktasında ciddi bir oranda iyileşme var. Ama Türkiye'de de şu anda atıklar konusunda da bununla ilgili yeni bilinçlendirme başladı. Yani evlerdeki gıda atıklarını kendi içimize gruplandırdığımızda aslında doğaya dönüşecek gübre olarak da bunu sağlayabiliriz. Aynı zamanda bunların ambalajlarını aldığımızda biraz önce bir Türkiye İhracatçılar Meclisi'nin attığı bir tweet'e baktığımda yeni dönemde köpeklerle ilgili bu plastik atıklardan yapılan köpek kulübeleri örneğine kadar aslında bambaşka bir sektör yarattığını da düşünüyoruz. Ve hatta plastik konusuna da girdiğimizde ambalajlar öyle bir hale gelindi ki insanların üzerindeki kıyafetlerin büyük bir kısmı bu içtiğimiz su şişelerinin veya nedir ambalaj artıklarının geri dönüşümünün sonucu olarak giydiğimiz kıyafetler haline geldi. Ve bunlarda biz nasıl bir petrol süreçlerinde dünyayı veya doğal zenginlikleri harap ederek yaparak bu hale getirdiysek şu anda da çözüm noktasında da bu geri dönüşüm noktasında Avrupa Birliği'nde de ben katılımcılara söylemek istiyorum. Bu konularda daha duyarlı olunması gerektiğini düşünüyorum. Çünkü eğer sıfır atık birbirinin ikamesi olarak yaptığımızda gıdayı enerjiyle rekabetçi hale getirmeye kalktığımızda bu bize dünya nüfusunun %30'u civarına aç olan bir dünya nüfusunda gelir seviyesi düşüklüğü olan ülkelere daha büyük bir gıda sıkıntısı yaratabilir. Çünkü yem sektörü örneğine verdiğimiz gibi tavukçulukta veya hayvan atıklarının hiçbirinde aslında bir atık yaratılmıyor. Bunların hepsi aynı zamanda protein kaynağı olarak tekrar kullanılabiliyor. Yani tavuk örneğinden şunu vermek istiyorum. İşin içerisinde birisi olduğumdan dolayı söylüyorum. Tavuğun yağından enerji fiyatları yükseldiğinde bir protein kaynağı olarak kullanılmak yerine yakılarak bir enerji kaynağı sürecine de giden bir altyapı tesislerde çalışmaları var. Yani bunlar da nereye getiriyor? Enerji ihtiyacının eğer yeşil enerji noktasında güneş ve rüzgar gibi alternatif enerji kaynaklarını arttıramazsak, biyogaz gibi kaynakları yüklendiğimizde aslında çevresel temizlikle başlayan, gıda atıkları konusunda fayda yaratan bir yapının bir üst noktasında enerjiyle gıdayı rekabet edebilecek bir boyuta getirmenin çekingenliğini de iletmek istiyorum. Bu konularda daha sonra soruları olan arkadaşlar da olursa seve seve yanıtlamaktan da mutluluk duyarım.
Thank you so much for your remarks, Mr. Matler. I need to just switch off my interpretation. I'm just confusing because of the noise. Sorry for that. So our next speaker in line is Antonio Moleda. He's the head of European programs at Cantabria Chamber of Commerce in Spain. So, Mr. Moleda, the floor is yours, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I think you can hear me all right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna change a little bit the topic of the meeting because I'm gonna talk about a small program that we are running to see how we are trying to support the transition of SMEs to a circular economy. The project is called Centur, and it stands for Circular Economy in Tourism. So it's a COSME program that is focused on tourism SMEs. It will run until September 2023. It started last year, although activities have been a little bit delayed because of Corona. The idea is to support SMEs in the tourism sector to adjust to the change to the transition from a linear to a circular economy. How we will do that? We will support them through participation in courses, giving them tools, references, supporting the transferation of knowledge between them. We will support 14 SMEs in those 3 years in our region in Spain. We are located in the northern Spain. Also, there's not just us. There's another partners. They are located in Italy, Belgium, Greece, Moldova, North Macedonia, and Italy, but and Cyprus also. But the SMEs will be supported will be from Cyprus, Greece, Moldova, and Spain. The strategic opportunity that we chose to take through this is because we believe the circular economy will be a huge key in the near future of the European Union and the European projects. That's why we choose this. It's a strategic opportunity for us to develop and test innovative ideas and to support the SMEs and develop a specific framework. This particular one, as I said, is focused on the tourism sector, but our idea is to learn also knowledge about it, so we can apply them in the near future on other sectors. The main objectives, as I said, of the program is to help them and support them in the transition to a circular economy. And also we would like to, as I said, develop a network of SME support through all Europe that we can use in the future. And also maybe give policy recommendations and develop a support scheme. As I said, we are very new in this. We are still in the process of defining the calls so we can approach the companies and then get them involved. The courses will last for around 6 months, every 3 weeks, and we will try to get them involved little by little to have them work together, to support them, and also, for example, they will be encouraged to change their supply chains methodologies so they can have a more locally focused supply chain. And on the final stages, we will try to help them get some certifications, some European certifications that can help them in the future. Hopefully, we can replicate this in the tourism sector and in other sectors in the future. This is how we are going to proceed in the next 3 years, and we hope that the circular economy becomes one of the main legs in our chamber. That's basically it, and I think I will give the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moleda. That was really great to hear your project about circular economy. And our next speaker will be Ms. Cleona Hubey. She is the head of circular economy and executive manager of EIT Climate Kick. So the floor is yours, Cleona.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to work out sharing my screen. I'm not sure if you can
no,
see
unfortunately, we cannot see your screen.
Okay, I feel like it's frozen for some reason.
Can you stop and try once again?
Yeah, I try again. Can you still hear me? And you're not seeing anything, no?
No.
Okay. Just giving a second. Bear with me. Are you seeing it now?
Yeah, that's better now.
Okay, good. I'm just changing now to presentation mode. And can you see the full screen?
Actually, I guess you have 2 screens, so we see your both screens. So you can change it from this display settings part.
Hmm? No.
It is above in the mid of what can I? Yeah, it shows test
This
bar
one?
next to it.
Hide presenters view. There we go.
Yeah.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah, it works now.
So let me introduce myself. I'm Cleona Howie. I'm the Director of Circular Economy at EIT Climate Kick. So thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this discussion today. I'm going to talk a little bit of bringing what is a circular economy perspective for a European recovery, resilience, and a new future for our economic and societal model, and talk about a little bit the relevance of that. And then I really want to bring it down to the level of what does this mean for chambers of commerce and what is their role in the circular economy? We just heard from Antonio, who's at a chamber of commerce in northern Spain, who I work with quite closely, actually. So it's a very good example of how chambers of commerce can get involved. But I'll go more into that in a minute. So EIT Climate Kick, we are using circular economy as a tool to look at how do we mitigate and adapt to climate change. We know that quick fixes are not enough. It's time to change the big picture. There has been a lot of research and knowledge now on circular economy and what circular economy development pathways look like and what this results in. What are the impacts to climate? So reducing, for example, primary material consumption by 53% by 2050 has a significant drop in CO2. It generates employment, it generates new business models and new opportunities in our economic model. Because of this kind of result-driven research where we understand what this economic model of a circular economy can bring, the European Commission has recognized this and recognized the need to transition to a circular economy as part of its EU Green Deal, as part of its action plan on circular economy, and using, as I've said, circular economy as a key tool to decarbonize our regions at a large scale. But how are we going to achieve this? We're talking about changing the system, our economic and social system, at local, regional, national, and international scales, because circular economy is talking about value chains, and value chains are on not just a European scale, but an international scale. So at Climate Kick, how are we interacting in this space of circular economy? We are working with nations, member states, countries, regions, industrial players, and communities to help implement this bold transition using circular economy. We do this by bringing a portfolio of activities, so not just technology or traditional innovation, but also looking at policy, looking at how the financial system needs to change, looking at education and capacity building, looking at new types of business models and entrepreneurship, to change that whole system from linear to circular. If we look ahead, the easy stuff is done. What lies ahead is, when we talk about a whole systems change, is really new ideas, new approaches, working on multiple levers of change. What are those levers of change? Those levers of change work across a whole system. This is where chambers of commerce sits. Chambers of commerce are very, very key actors inside an ecosystem approach. So if you look at on the screen here, if we think of ecosystem being place-based, this can be local, this can be regional, this can be national, this can be macro regional, macro national. But who are the players? Who are the actors? What are the things we're trying to change? And how do we do that? Chambers of commerce sit inside this ecosystem as intermediaries between policymakers, between industry, between SMEs, between citizens, and between government action. What are the levers of change that we're acting on in this ecosystem? And where do chambers of commerce sit within these levers of change? So I've already talked a little bit about the systems innovation approach and the levers of change, meaning what do we need to trigger? What are the things we have to focus on that actually bring a circularity or circular or design principles into it? We need to change our policy and regulatory frameworks, meaning at the moment, our policy and regulatory frameworks are based on a linear model. So what new policies are there? What new policies need to come in, or how do we shift or modify existing policies to bring new legal frameworks to that? Chambers of commerce can help not only bring understanding of the market, the commercial side, the business needs, citizen needs, but they can work with policymakers to help drive that change. This is linked to education, for example, education and skills. Chambers of Commerce are key providers of capacity building, of training, of knowledge transfer between all the different actors in that ecosystem. This is linked to bringing new technology transfer. Chambers of Commerce are very well known for creating links and brokering discussions and actual business contracts between different partners that are needed for new types of collaboration. This triggers market changes. This brings new key enabling technologies. This brings different kinds of funding and finance to business models, production models, etc. What are the kind of activities that we can do to bring this systemic change? I mentioned reshaping European public policy and public funding. But again, Chambers of Commerce play an interesting role here on building and orchestrating a network of actors. So that ecosystem approach, how do we coordinate it we can better coordinate it, let me say, we can better coordinate it with intermediaries like Chambers of Commerce that represent at a regional scale all the actors that are addressing these challenges that we're talking about within a circular economy. We can also use Chambers of Commerce to think about how to transform industrial value chains, meaning that capacity building, that knowledge on key enabling technologies, bringing new knowledge and opportunities to industry and businesses inside the region for a territorial approach. Stakeholder engagement is absolutely key to new types of collaboration models which are needed for circular economy. Chambers of Commerce can play a role as a trusted third-party mediator between those kinds of stakeholder engagement and different and new collaborations. So that's a very small taste. I'm very happy to take questions, but I would like to say that Climate Kick is working on an ecosystem approach. In that ecosystem, we're identifying Chambers of Commerce in each side of those ecosystems as a key player. And you heard Antonio represent the case for Cantabria, which is a region in northern Spain. We are working with Cantabria currently as a player for building a regional circular economy transition pathway. And smaller projects like the SME advisory services, for example, play a part in that. So thank you for listening in. I'm very open to questions if there's time for that.
Thank you very much for this valuable contribution, actually. As you mentioned, definitely strategies for sustainability and can facilitate the implementation of this circular economy strategy, especially in agri-food systems, and help create new opportunities for value-added activities. And Chamber of Commerce, commodity exchange are playing key role for this transition and defining these strategies. We have one question actually from Pınay Alagöz. Has COVID-19 process advantages or disadvantages of agri-food production?
I'm happy to take that question.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the agri-food sector, I would say that there's been both disadvantages and advantages. Of course, when we're talking about slowing down the economy, we are having an impact on the agri-food sector. However, at the same time, looking at transition pathways and a regional territorial approach, there has been new business models, new solutions for localizing supply chains and bringing security to those supply chains. So what we experienced with COVID was there's a lot of instability and a lack of security on global value chains. So whilst we're dependent on products and services across these global value chains, when something like COVID happens, it was actually a very good lesson for us to say, how can we bring security by promoting more local, more regional product supply and demand? And this happened out of necessity. it happened where we started looking for more local options and circular options for filling those supply chain gaps. In the agro-food sector, we became reliant on, well, what are the options and who are the providers, and becoming much more aware of bringing those providers into a regional approach for supply. So for me, it's, yes, there's economic impacts that we've all suffered. However, the opportunities that COVID has shown us mean that this transition is possible, and it actually brings a focus on agro-food suppliers at a local regional scale where perhaps we weren't considering before. This is obviously very circular. It's much more sustainable, it's much more resilient, and helps support a more local-based agro-food production value chain.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sulima, please.
Yes, if I may, I absolutely agree with the predecessor and with the speaker, with Mr. Owi, on this issue. I would just maybe also add that what I think that the COVID, actually, the whole situation with COVID, it speeded up certain processes which existed before, but which we had to face at all levels, at political level, at the farmer level, at food sector level, participants, at a much faster way. We all had to adapt as quick as we could to keep, let's say, the whole sector alive, let's say. And I think it also shows one thing, that this sector is really capable of using the opportunities which even such a difficult situations create. And I think that while on one hand, I fully agree that short supply chain, locality, going for traditional or local food is a big winner of the whole situation. I think that another part is the quality of food. And I think that the consumers, they really realize how important, with the overall concept and context related to health, their individual health, but also public health, how important the quality of what they eat, what they consume is. And I think this also shows that local, but also, for instance, organic product, they were really also a winner of the situation. But I also agree with with what was said, that it was a difficult situation. We, for instance, could see in the very beginning that of the pandemic, that we had the suddenly difficulties with transporting the food. Okay, we find relatively quickly the solution with the green corridors, but the problem appeared, something new which we didn't know in the single markets for decades. But again, the resistance, I think, and resilience of the sector, its capability of adjusting to the situation, it's something which we should not underestimate, we should praise. And it shows that agri-food system, contrary to what some stakeholders might sometimes think and say, that it's a sort of old-fashioned, like the whole agriculture, actually it's not. It's really capable of quickly responding and keeping itself alive, and even winning in some respect from such situations.
I can actually, that's very, very interesting. And I can actually share a very practical example in the region of Cantabria in northern Spain. What happened was we needed to rely on shorter supply chains. There was an immediate demand to find food that was available, right? Which is locally, regionally produced, obviously, because that's where we can get it from, source it from. There was a disconnect between agro-food producers and consumers because they weren't set up. What the government did was step in and create a digital platform where we were able to purchase directly from agro-food producers, and people were buying locally, regionally produced food that they never, in a way they never did before. So it gave them access to their local food, which is of a better quality because it's locally produced and not transported across global value supply chains. It brought new business to agri-food producers, and it created a new digital solution for that connection. So it was actually very exciting. As a consumer myself, it opened up. I noticed how it opened up the way I bought food and the way I changed the way I bought food. It created actually knowledge of who the agri-food producers were. It's like where you had direct contact with who they were. And all of this provides as we're saying, a more sustainable, resilient choice for the way our food chain works and the way we produce it and the way that we bring quality to consumers. So I absolutely agree with you. And I imagine that kind of example is repeated in many other places. And so that's something I think we have to learn from as an example of how can we replicate this in more opportunities, more options. Thank you.
Actually, thank you so much. Even in terms of food quality, if we look at ourselves, we started to have more organic foods, and we started to cook at home, even bake our bread at home. So it totally changed our daily life, and we got used to have more digital platform in each type of our service, not only for our like business life, and I totally agree with these examples. I would like to ask to Mr. Matlı, what about the Turkish SMEs and this COVID situation? Do you think what type of advantages or disadvantages we had proceed?
Evet, şimdi KOBİ'lere soru için teşekkür ederim. Üretici kısmında mı soruyoruz? Normal şehirlerdeki gıda sektörlerini mi? Hangisi?
Benzer şekilde Türkiye'de de bu şekilde inovatif bir yaklaşım oldu mu? Bu tarz avantaj diyebileceğimiz ne tarz acaba şeyler ortaya çıktı Türkiye'de?
Yani tüketimlerde bu şeydeki tüketici noktasında tüketiciler daha bilinçli, daha organik ürünlere kayma noktasında Avrupa'da olduğu gibi bizde de kayışlar başladı. Dijital dünya daha çok kullanılmaya başlandı. Aslında daha önce konuşmacılar da söyledi. Dijital dünyayı, belki bildiğimiz dünyayı yeniden tekrar keşfettik. Ürün gamları değişmeye başlıyor ihtiyaçlar noktasında. Çünkü yeterlilik noktasında bölgesel ihtiyaçlara göre tekrar bir planlama başladı. Yani biz Türkiye'nin Bursa bölgesinde yaşıyoruz. Bursa bölgesinde 10 ürün dışarıdan geliyorsa, 5'i buradan üretiliyorsa, bu 10 gelen ürünün 5'i azaltılarak bölgede üretilir hale gelmeye başladı. Yani her bölge kendi kendine yeterlilik haline getirmeye başladı. Ama aynı zamanda daha çevre dostu teknikler, daha dijitalleşme, daha doğal beslenmeye kayış başladı. Çok hızlı bir değişim başladı. Yani bu pandemi süreci aslında dünyada bambaşka yeni bir gıdayı anlatacak. Belki de gıdacıların daha ön plana getirecekleri, daha önde konuşulması gereken bir konu mu, sorun mu demek lazım aslında. Gündemin birinci maddesine doğru çıkmaya başlıyor gıda artık. Yeterli olabildi mi bilemiyorum.
Çok teşekkürler başkanım katkılarınız için. I don't see any further questions in the Q&A box. It was really so fruitful session, and thank you very much for all your contribution and these valuable remarks. Actually, we appreciate you all being here and participate this session, and thanks again for joining us today, and hope to meet you tomorrow. Tomorrow we will start.
Türkiye'den sağlıklı günler hepinize.
Çok teşekkürler başkanım. Tomorrow we will have the session of on new trends in the agri-food sector, and we will start at 9:30 in Central Europe time, 10:30 in Turkey, and you can find recorded version of these webinars in our TBD website and TBD YouTube account. Thank you so much. Have a great day. See you tomorrow then.
Thank you very much.